On a beautiful run through the park on a pleasant day, you can easily get lost.
No! She didn't kill him.
Huh? In your true crime podcast.
It was the pool guy. So obvious.
Whatever motivates you works for us. It's all about letting your run be your run. And Brooks is here for every runner, doing the research and sweating the details to create gear that works for you. It's your run. Brooks, run happy.
Boobies.
Boobies. Are you good to go?
Yes.
Start her up.
Started.
Hi.
Hello and welcome to
Boobies.
Boobies. That's right. We're your host. I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Joshua.
And we are here to talk to you about kind of like a cult classic. Not, is it a cult classic? I feel like it's just an iconic.
I don't know about cultish. I could have a cult following. I know that I chose it, so I really like it.
Yeah.
But I would say iconic. Yeah. And I think mainly because of like the
historical.
Yeah, because of where it pulls its reference from.
Yeah.
Because everybody kind of knows the legend of Sleepy Hollow. I feel also like the names tied to it: Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, like
half the cast of Harry Potter,
Christopher Walken,
at least somewhere
Christopher
throughout.
Lee. I think yeah. There's just so many names that like just off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. Casper Van Dien, Michael Gambon, Jeffrey Jones. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like really
Richard Griffiths.
Really, who? Huh?
Richard Griffiths, who
Richard
played
Griffiths.
Uncle in Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm. And so, 1999 is loosely based off of Washington Irving's 1820 short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this gothic supernatural horror film that really just it's kind of like there's I feel like it encapsulates a lot of things that I like in movies or the style of movies. Is this like this horror, it's like fantasy, whimsical, almost in a way,
whimsical,
with the little romance mixed in there, but with also like a whodunit murder mystery.
Yeah, that's true, because it does have
like
you thinking
all of my favorites
throughout multiple points.
Yeah, you're trying to think of like what's going on.
Like because I had seen this before, but it had definitely been one of those films that had been so long that I was like,
things get lost.
I don't remember who it is. So at one point I was definitely suspecting Katrina. Like whenever she was in the room and she was like, "Where were you? I missed you." I was like, "That's sus as fuck.
That's weird."
Yeah.
Weird girl vibes.
That's suspicious.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, I was like, I suspected her. I did suspect the stepmom from the start, because the moment Katrina said that she used to be her mom's like nurse and then is now married to the dad, I was like, nah.
Yeah.
Nah. That's
sus.
That's real
also
weird.
red flag.
Yeah. I was like, that's sounds like she, if nothing else, she at least killed your mom.
Yeah, there's some kind of mischievous, like some wrongdoing going on.
Yeah.
Some puppet mastering. But like this movie
legit puppet mastering.
kind of just opens right into it. We get this like, credits kind of going.
Ghostly Oz.
Ghostly Oz. The music is very, whimsical.
Very Tim Burton.
The score,
I mean,
Tim Burton.
It's Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman and Tim Burton go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And Danny Elfman's made many a beautiful, wonderful, incredible soundtracks, which are mostly attached to Tim Burton films.
Yeah.
But he's also has such a just giant repertoire, and he's incredible. Love Danny Elfman.
And we got that music going, and there's a writing of a letter happening, or what you can see is a last will and testament, essentially.
Yeah.
And we got.
I thought it was blood dripping too at first.
Oh yeah.
I was like, blood dripping
already.
And then I was like,
oh, it's a wax stamp.
And then I was like, JK, it's wax.
Yeah. I've always like really liked letters too with the wax stamp. Like that's that's pretty boss.
It's so neat.
Mhm.
Wax stamps are
adornment.
cool as
It's
hell.
really cool. And so it's got the Van Garrett name attached to it. And then we get this I'd say rather old man leaving this hand and going and hurrying up into a horse and buggy, and he's
And we
obviously
pass Jack the Pumpkin King.
Oh, yes. Jack the Pumpkin King. He's a part of the story too, which is a part of Tim Burton's.
Yes, yeah. It looked identical to him. And I was like, oh.
A little
I feel
odd.
like that was intentional.
Nod.
Yeah.
And so, wait, when did Nightmare come out?
I don't know. 98.
Google it. But
94 is when
94?
it came out. I believe it came out the same year we were born.
Gotcha.
Nightmare Before
And so
Christmas.
he's
93.
93. Wow, we weren't even born.
Yep.
Maybe we
You're
were
dead.
conceived.
Yeah, maybe.
Could have been in the womb. And so we do have all of this going on. It's escalating quickly because he gets in a horse and buggy and he's going, and it's hiya, and he's got a driver, a reiner, a horser. What is that called?
I'm thinking that's his son.
Yeah. Trying
Yeah.
to get away with him because they kept saying they were both killed that night.
Yeah.
Um,
And so his son was like the horse and buggy driver. Dad was sitting inside, and yeah, they were racing away. Then it's a really ominous scene too. Lots of thunder. And then we get some horse whinnying.
whining?
Whinnies.
Weenies?
Whinnies.
Winnies?
Yeah.
Whinies, hornies, whinies.
Hey. Hornies.
My bad, horsies.
Have you ever seen a horse's penis?
No, I
They
don't think
touch
so.
the ground.
I don't think I want to see it.
They're so long.
I can imagine. That's what they say.
I drove past one on a truck once, and I was like,
and
"What
it was
is that?"
horny.
And I was like, "Oh my god, that's its penis." It was
That's scary.
bizarre.
And it puts it in the other horse? Why is it so long?
I don't know.
Because they have to, like, the way they mount, right?
Yeah, probably.
It has
it's
to, like,
gotta-
reach. Yeah.
It's got a little
Ew.
mind of its own.
It's like the thing off of Poltergeist
Yeah.
coming out of the closet.
Wee.
And so that's what you really saw.
Ew,
coming
it was
out of the
a horse's
horse.
penis.
It was. And just like this movie, there's also a portal to the netherworld.
Oh, I was like, what? Just like this movie,
No.
there's also a horse's
There are
penis?
horses, though.
There's lots
lot
of
of horses. They all do have penises.
And they
Unless
all
they're lady
whinny.
horses.
Then
Yeah.
they have vaginas.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the horse anatomy, actually.
Female.
I'm not a horse girl. I'm not an
neither.
equestrian
I'm
fanatic.
pretty sure horses have like pretty, and like they look pretty similar anatomy wise
Oh, really?
to a vagina.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, because when they're pregnant and stuff, I'm pretty sure it looks kind of like one. Like whenever before they give birth.
And
Anyways.
so I digress. We are back onto this situation. We hear the horse whinnies
Weenies.
going on in the background, and you start to hear like a little galloping of a horse as well. And then the next thing we know is our fucking son has got his head chopped off.
Yep,
Who's
driver's head.
driving the buggies.
Bye.
And the old man noticing this and just like leaves, dips. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm done.
He was like,
I'm getting
"I'm
out of here.
Out. He jumped right out, tuck and rolled.
Although, do you think that you would really be that safe outside?
No, but I wouldn't want to be in a horse-drawn carriage that
That's right.
crashes.
That's true, because
So-
that would probably be a lot
But
more of a mess.
the horses would probably still.
But it's kind of like pick your
continue.
poison, because it's like
Yeah.
either way, it's not a good situation, I guess.
Something bad is gonna happen.
Yeah,
But I definitely wouldn't want to be in that wheat or cornfield.
That's what I was about to say. He ends up getting in there and sees the scarecrow, pumpkin skeleton, Jack Skellington, scarecrow. That's what I was
Yes.
trying to say.
Oh.
Scarecrow.
I
My
was
bad.
like, Skellington was
Yeah,
right.
but scarecrow. And as he's kind of looking at it, we hear the whinnies again, and the horseman pops up. But we don't really see the horseman, but we do get the blades chopping his head off, and the blood squirts all over the pumpkin.
It was funny.
Yeah, it was pretty. It's a little campy at some points.
Yeah,
That's Tim
I
Burton.
did like the way that the blood looked on the actual jack-o'-lantern.
Mhm.
It was just it was the way that the head went.
Off. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the times the head's just kind of poop. Oh, getting attacked by the plants.
Trees falling over.
Is it a tree? It's a
Uh,
fern. It's a plant,
This is not a fern.
not a fern.
Okay,
There
that's
you
good
go.
enough.
I think it's
Still
the
lingering.
poltergeist. They're still here lingering.
I think it's because my cord's attached to
Oh. Well, you guys, Caitlin's figuring that out.
it. Okay, you know what?
Where's
We're
the
just
cord
gonna-
at?
We're just going to be friends. It's
There we
gonna-
go.
We'll figure that out later.
And so he ends up, then we get cut to NYC, 1799. The way it just kept falling and falling and falling. It's okay. I think it's good now. It can't go anywhere else.
There. 1999.
No, it's 1799.
1799.
But I also just messed that up too, my bad. That's like, when I saw that, I'm just like, wow, that's such a long time ago. Like, but still, like, it's like the world in 1799. And they were like, and they were all thinking like, it's the turn of the century, a new millennium, 1800s. And I'm like, that's still 1800 though. That's still, like, we were not going anywhere.
You're still really not
far behind. Yeah. But we are introduced
in their realm of things. They are. Yeah.
We're introduced to Ichabod Crane. I call him Itchy throughout the whole thing because I just shortened it to Itchy.
I think I just call him Crane.
Mainly
because Ichabod.
It's just a lot.
Yeah, Ichabod, and my phone kept auto-correcting to other things.
Same.
And I was like, I can't handle.
I even still have it spelled wrong here.
Ichabod.
It says Ichabod.
Ichabod.
Itchy buns. It just made me think of Itchy bun.
Itchy bun.
So that's why I called him Itchy. And so Itchy kind of pops up, and they're asking, some people on horses are asking, is that you, Ichabod Crane? And he's like, yeah. And someone else, because there's this little floating waterlogged body.
Corpse. Yeah. It's pretty nasty looking.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
And they get him out of the water and take him in. And he really wants to, he's, I guess, on the turn of being what is we would now have a mortician, a morgue, someone who opens up a body, a physician, and looks at the anatomy and finds out a cause of death.
And also, also just a crime scene investigator.
Yeah.
He's really trying to carry out like all the actual true judicial roles and stuff with finding and achieving actual justice. Because as we see, as he gets into the
like a prison ward kind of area,
thing, the guy in charge is just like basically
burned the body.
He doesn't
for one.
Yeah,
he doesn't care. And we have this guy come in who was accused of what?
Robbery, I believe.
And they just throw him into a
and he was like clearly beaten up, like way like super harsh misuse of
police force brutality.
Yeah, super brutal. And they just throw him in this pit like on his head too.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, a very clear mistreatment of the judicial system. And then we flash to a courtroom.
Yeah, and we have Itchy, and he's talking to a council of city folk. I don't know, the people in charge, apparently.
Like a judge.
Yeah, who is, of course, Christopher Lee, who has been in so many movies.
All the things.
R.I.P. And I love his voice. His voice, for one, is just like, it carries. Like, it has such resonance.
Yeah.
Anytime I hear him talk, I'm just like, I feel like I'm...
a nice little shiver down
or I'm getting
spine.
scolded or something. Yeah, I don't know. But Itchy's just trying to say, like, we're at the turn of the millennium. It's about to be the 19th century, and we really should start, using our heads and reason and logic to finding things out, and like you said, finding justice, as opposed to doing it the old school way, or just
not doing anything
at all.
Really.
Yeah. And so everybody in there is just kind of like, he's really much at this point kind of like the rebel rouser, the someone who's really going against the status quo. And as opposed to them telling him, we're just going to throw you in the jail cell for being causing a ruckus, we're actually going to give you something to do. And I feel like it's 50-50. They're like basically trying to like send him somewhere else because they don't want to deal with him.
Yeah, because they don't like don't like change, clearly. And he is trying to change things for the better. Like, he was being a very pivotal point in like societal and trying to bring new and exciting ways to
age
solve
ideas.
Things.
Yeah.
To this city, which was a major city. Like, it would make sense for them to still do stuff like that in Sleepy Hollow.
Which was not the case.
No, they were more logical.
Even at that, but
kind
as
of.
opposed to ghost stories. But they ended up being more open to his ways of how he does things.
Yeah.
In the sense that they were so closed-minded that he couldn't even perform his ways of doing things.
And maybe that had to do with a certain amount of education, and and I'd say that, but then that proves to not be the case for Americans today.
Well,
But I think just they didn't really know to also question him. And then at this point, they were probably at their wits' end and like, please, just for the love of God, save us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The people in Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
And so he gets this, task, journey, mission, and we get a title card.
And they say, use your experiments
right.
to find the murderer there and bring him here to face our good judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Which they were basically saying like, yeah, get the hell out of here. And then we're
It's like
still going to do our good judgment.
Well, it's like a wild goose chase, as well. They're basically just giving him some
And they're
busy
threatening
work.
him.
Oh, yeah.
Too, because they're like, it's you now, Crane, who are being put to the test. And if you don't figure this out, like, you're fucked.
And even everything, like, you say that you can do all these things, and they're basically just testing him, just like you said as well. Like, either it's kind of like a win-win for them because it sends him away, and if he fails, then it's like even more so like reason for them not to give him any type of,
exactly, yeah.
ethos. He's not credible in any way because he's obviously failed in what he's trying to prove.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how, going back to the title card, that the Sleepy Hollow came up as we were heading towards
to Sleepy Hollow. Yeah,
it so
it's
nice.
Perfect timing. I
like
the way it came
"Aw."
up. It was very wispy. And,
Yeah.
it's really ghosty.
And then you get your like subsequent credits.
Yeah, at this point, as
of the
opposed to getting them at the
actual
beginning film.
Actresses, because we got like some credits with like the producers and saying like Tim
Yeah.
Burton film and
But these
music
were
by Danny Elfman and stuff like that.
this was the actual cast.
Actually, Danny Elfman was a little bit later, and it was during these credits.
Yeah,
that we got
because
that.
this is where we get the main cast and stuff.
Yeah.
And we do open up to Itchy as well. On his way there, looking at his journal
And the holes in his hand.
looking at the holes in his hands, which is
Ew.
kind of like a flash or a foreshadowing of information that we're gonna get obviously
Yeah.
throughout the movie of why why he has those scars. And he ends up getting into town, and as he's walking in, it's kind of like that really old school vibe of like the new stranger in town and everybody's closing their windows,
Yeah.
like just not
I
a big
think it
welcome
was
party.
Also due in part to the fact that like that
The
it was
murders?
getting dark.
Oh, true. Yeah.
And that they were like, ooh, we got to close up shop before the horseman gets here
Yeah.
and takes someone else's head.
It's like a curfew, like Scream.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not. And then also, I think half the town was at Van Tassel's house.
Yeah, that's true. Because even though we have all these murders going on, we are still finding a reason to party and celebrate.
Exactly. Also,
Mhm.
that carriage couldn't have taken him any further.
I know. Yeah, it's
I
like
was
on
like,
the edge of town.
what the fuck? Because then he had to walk all the way to the Van Tassel house, and that was I was like, man, this fool's been walking for a while
The
now.
carriage
Like-
dude was like, nah, I've heard about this town. I ain't getting mixed up with
yeah,
this
it's like
shit.
we're gonna leave. I'll come back for you. You just send it a little
Yeah.
telegram. I'll come
Exactly.
get you.
3 weeks later.
Exactly.
And so that's whenever we have him, like we said, getting to this house and there's a party going on. Before that, we did see kind of that there's a watch post. We see some
yeah.
interaction between the old Mastiff and young Mastiff talking to each other. And then we have him getting to that house party, and we walk in on them playing, the witch game. Who's the witch, or trying to suss out a witch.
Yeah.
Christina Ricci, who plays Katrina, is the one who's trying to find the witch, and she ends up like bumping into him, and she's a real slut because immediately she don't even know who the fuck he is, and she's supposed to be with Brom. It's just like, well, are you Brom? And he's like, no, and she's like, well, just in case. Here you go, or something like that.
Yeah, I think she said, "Are you Theodore?" Which was
Yeah.
another friend there. But I think that's like the whole intention of the game.
Is it to kiss
Yeah.
the person? Oh, I didn't know that.
I think it is.
Oh, I didn't know.
I think like who will kiss, because she says the pickety witch, who will kiss the pickety witch.
Oh, okay.
And then so you get like kissed by the witch, and then I think it's like your turn and you become.
Ah,
So it's like spin the
I
bottle.
thought she was a slut.
I think that was the intention.
Hmm.
But she also didn't give two shits for Brom.
She didn't really.
And later on, she was
We
like,
find out.
I
Yeah,
cried for him,
but I'm not heartbroken. Yeah.
I don't feel nothing.
Mhm. And
It's
so
been like a day. I
Yeah.
was like, damn, bitch, you savage.
And so he ends up meeting, of course, Brom, who walks up and is like, whoa, that's my woman. And then we have him meeting the Van Tassels, the wife and the husband. And the husband's like, can y'all please not roughhouse in here or draw attention to yourselves? I'm trying to throw a party so, everybody can, be light in the mood because of everything going on.
Yeah.
And that's when he gets to introduce himself as, the help that has been sent to solve the mysteries as to who is murdering the people in their town. And of course, the stepmother, Mrs. Van Tassel, is she's just like, well, since you're here to help, you must honor us and stay with us.
Yeah.
Which is just another way that we do find out later for her to, keep an eye, keep tabs, keep them close. Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And then they pull him aside and pull him into a little side room meeting with all of the
councilmen, I would say.
Yeah, like the reverend, the clergy. Is that the same thing?
The reverend, the magistrate, the notary,
yeah.
the doctor.
And the doctor, yeah.
And then Mr. Van Tassel.
It gave very Edward Scissorhand vibes here, too, as he was, like, picking up one of his little utensils or instruments and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, feels
also
like
Tim
that.
Burton, also Johnny Depp. And so...
I did not get everyone's name until way later.
Oh, yeah.
Because they said him so quickly, and I was like, I'm not.
I didn't either. I just know that the doctor's name is Thomas Lane. And then there was the reverend and the magistrate and the notary. That's what I kind of basically went with them the whole time. I never really wrote their name down next to their notes. I was just like, oh, this person. But they are talking to him. And that's whenever he's asking questions. They're kind of explaining what's been happening. But he does end up saying something along the lines of like, well, because he's trying to be like, well, I know what's going on here. And the heads have been, were cut off and removed and whatever. And the people... And that's whenever they tell him, well, they were cut off, but they also were never found. Like there are no heads at all. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's weird.
And they're also going through the 3 people who have been killed thus far. 3 that we know of.
Van Garrett, old man Van Garrett.
Yeah, we get Peter and Dirk Van Garrett, as well as the widow Winship.
And so that's whenever they do try to explain to him as well that they are spooked because they believe this to be the Headless Horseman, who used to be a Hessian, a merciless mercenary sent by the Russians or the Germans, I believe, to keep the U.S., loyal to whatever, the crown. I don't know.
The crown, yeah.
Yeah. And so they basically are just describing him as like, he came, but not as loyal, not for his loyalty to his country, but more so because he just was bloodthirsty.
He had a love of carnage
and wanted to kill. And so he didn't meet his demise until the winter of 79, which was 20 years earlier to the time period that we're in right now.
And he filed down his teeth.
That's right.
And his horse was named Daredevil.
Yeah.
Funny.
Lots of ties to Satan. And so that's whenever we do have that.
Also his screaming. Sorry. The whole time he's just like, rah!
And this is when we do see it's Christopher fucking Walken.
Yeah.
So a great role. He did such a good job in playing this role.
It was just
and
funny.
just looking like a lunatic.
Yeah.
For the most part.
For real.
And so he
Crazed.
Ends up meeting his demise by getting ran off by these soldiers that are following him, shooting at him, goes into the woods, tries to hide, essentially bumps into these 2 little twin girls and shushes them so they make no noise. But one of the little twin girls just snaps her twig. So he ends up getting caught, and he ends up, after killing a few guys, gets murdered himself, and they cut off his head. And
with his own sword.
With his own sword. And it's this whole thing while the little girl is watching, and the whole time that's a whole thing because it's foreshadowing, and this little girl obviously is going to come into play later on in the movie.
Yeah.
And he does get killed. So that's how the legend was started because, basically as his body was, put into a grave on this land, it created then a seed of evil that has now come into fruition, and he is now back to reclaim and take his revenge.
Now the Hessian awaits. He's ready.
Yeah.
And then basically Ichabod's just saying like,
that's
what the fuck?
Bunch of rubbish.
And then he was like, I've got books and stuff. And then this is where the Reverend is like,
this is the only book.
This is the only book you need.
The big ass Holy Bible.
Yeah, God, it was massive Holy Bible.
There's like no translation.
It's like the size of this.
Yeah.
Pillow in my lap.
It's the letters are this big.
Yeah.
And so
maybe he added his own
maybe. And we do have him opening up. We do get like a really short and fast glimpse of the Van Tassel Van Garrett family tree. But it's really fast, but it's also just another thing of foreshadowing because that's definitely going to come and play later. And Itchy just is basically like, well, I don't believe in any of that. And with my reasoning, I will find the person and the culprit who is murdering the people in this town, and I will bring them to justice.
The assassin is a man of flesh and blood, and I will discover him.
So I guess simultaneously as this is going on, we do have flames going out at the watch posts, and we do have the person who is watching, which is old Masbeth.
Yes.
Kind of the lookout. He is getting spooked because we do see the sheep of flock running away, or the flock of sheep, my bad, running away.
I think it might have been deer.
Was it deer?
It doesn't matter, but I don't know. Yeah, a herd of something comes and it runs and it looks spooked. It's clearly running from something.
And so they end up we don't hear anything. That's right, because we just hear a gunshot go off. We don't see anything, my bad. We hear a gunshot go off, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, what's happening? And unfortunately for Masbeth, he's getting chased down by the horseman and ends up getting his head chopped off.
Yep.
Bloop, right
Lopped right off.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like the heads popping off in the movie.
The way that it goes.
Yeah.
Blop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just like rolls.
I mean, it's entertaining for sure.
And so
very kitschy and whimsical, like you said.
And the next day, or I don't even know if it's the next day at this point, but we do have
at some point in time,
someone firing off. And they're like, murder. There's been murder.
There's another one.
The town crier.
Yeah. And then Ichabod, Mr. Crane, is getting introduced to his horsey. Gunpowder
And lead.
Yeah, cute. And then whenever he like gets on his horse to ride over to there to find
the body,
Masbeth's body. Yeah, I love how as he rides up, he's like, "It's okay, I'm here now."
Yeah,
and it's like, bitch, no one was
looking for you.
No one was really looking for you, but okay.
And that's whenever he's inspecting the area. He's like, why was the head removed? Talking to himself kind of ish, and they're kind of like trying to explain him what happened, and he's like kind of explaining what happened, but like in his own way.
Yeah, he's more so like really
reenacting and stuff.
Yeah, because he's like he
asked him, did you move the body?
Are gigantic. Yeah, and he like gallops around, acts like he's on a little pony, like Monty Python.
Like he came around this way and then
he circled back for the head.
He also told them never move the body, and they're like, why? And he doesn't answer, and he's like, because. Yeah,
which is correct. Yeah. But yeah, he didn't know the reasoning yet. Yeah. And because, well, they didn't have fingerprint analysis at that point in time. But
it's like, there is a reason though.
And
I don't know it yet.
Also moving the body can cause the blood to pool in different ways.
Yeah.
And can, you should
ruin
never move the body.
The evidence.
You should never move any evidence.
Don't touch the crime scene. Yeah.
Don't touch it.
And so that's whenever he does bring out his little duffel bag, and it's got all of this little science stuff. It's really cute. He has a little chemistry set in his bag.
It was so fun.
And he ends up
it was like a makeup set.
Yeah.
Opened up, had tears.
And then throws some like potion chemical thing onto the body, like in the neck area, and it's like, oh, there's a chemical reaction, so that means it was cut with like steel or something like that.
Yeah, he said the wound was cauterized instantly, as if the blade was red hot.
That's right.
But there's no scorched flesh.
We also do kind of get like the little sense here of he's a bit squeamish.
Yes.
Yeah, for someone who's in this field of work.
Yeah, because as he lifts
a little
up,
bug pops out or something.
Yeah, a little beetle like crawls out of the neck flap.
But
which was pretty gross.
It was gross.
I was like, ew.
It should have been maggots, but it wasn't there long enough.
Yeah.
And so fast forward a little bit, it is now Jonathan Masbeth's funeral. He's getting buried. Everybody, of course, is there to pay their respects. And we do also get to meet young Masbeth, who introduces himself and is essentially just saying, like, I have nobody. Everybody is dead, and I would like to help you.
I would like to avenge my father.
Can you believe my new daddy?
Yeah. Please adopt me. Thank you.
Essentially.
You're this random new person. You can have me.
And of course, Itchy kind of like he denies him at first, because he's like, I don't want to be as anyone would be, like, I don't want to be responsible for this child.
Yeah,
like you seem like a basket case. Yeah, not a basket case. So what's the thing, like a charity case? Sorry.
Yeah, because then he was like, well, what about your mother? And he was like, my mom's in heaven.
She's dead. Yeah,
she's dead.
And so that's whenever we do have what is he?
He's the magistrate.
The magistrate
come up and gives him a little hint.
And he's like, let me tell you that there are 4 graves, but there are 5 victims.
Yep.
5 people in these 4 graves. So it kind of makes Itchy scratch his head, and he's like, huh. And at that point, immediately, I'm like, obviously someone's pregnant.
Yeah.
And we did know that the widow was one of the people who were dead. But at this point, he exhumes other bodies because he needs to investigate.
Yeah.
For, I guess for proof. And he does open her body up, and he goes to the doctor's thing, and they have a whole thing where he's like, having his little back and forth with the doctor, and he needs the operating room. But he does cut her open. And as he's doing so, it kind of looks like he's also, like we said, he's learning. He's reading a book and he's trying to figure it out.
She had a lot of blood go
Everywhere, yeah. It kind of seems like it was trial and error, a lot of error. But
maybe
he
going too deep.
Did eventually find what he was looking for, because he comes out covered in blood.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the fuck? And he's like, she was with child. And I mean, none of them really look shocked as well.
No.
Nobody looked shocked because they all like, fucking knew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they were trying to bury that secret.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they did do a good job with like really referring to her as the widow Winship as well, because you would think if it's a widow that she would be like not pregnant unless her husband had just died. But we don't know that, and then we find out later why she was pregnant. Yeah, which I think was important.
There's a lot of people pulling strings here, and a lot of them relying on nobody asking questions. You know,
exactly.
Yeah,
which is funny that they were so willing to go with him because he's only asking questions.
Hey there, homeowners. Is it time to give your yard a complete makeover this summer? Villani Landshapers, a local family-owned business, has been transforming landscapes for more than 20 years. Villani Landshapers specializes in landscape design build, retaining walls, outdoor living spaces, and so much more. Request your free consultation today and check out their gallery of residential work at villani-landshapers.com.
From the host of the popular podcast, The Only One in the Room, Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins is a propulsive and vivid memoir about the journey to sobriety and self-love amidst addiction, privilege, racism, and self-sabotage. Best-selling author Holly Whitaker calls it an irresistibly delicious story, and MacArthur Foundation fellow and best-selling author Kiese Lehman says Stash is emotionally riveting. Buy Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins now, wherever books are sold.
So we have this whole debacle with the child, and now this has come to light, and we have Itchy, and he has a run-in with the horseman at this point. Very like, you know,
what we think is the horseman.
That's true. He ends up getting essentially pranked by Brahm and a couple friends because they chase him, and he's really scared out of his mind, like going through the woods. And he ends up, I feel there's this moment where he's like, why am I running? Like, I myself don't believe this.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, let me face it, because like, I don't think that's a real ghost. But then he has this like flaming pumpkin.
Jack-o'-lantern.
That, oh yeah, duh. Jack-o'-lantern. Because it has the face, and it gets thrown into his head. Yeah. And he ends up falling off of his horse and bumping on the ground.
I'm surprised he wasn't more fucked up from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love too how like the jack-o'-lantern like comes into the frame of like the camera
and then goes,
because it gives very like 3D before 3D was a thing.
Yeah, it did.
And so of course, as he's on the ground, it doesn't take long for him to hear Brahm and the other friends like laughing, giggling, just like, you know, somewhere in the trees behind him. So at this point he does know like, okay, this is just some fuckers, like it's not even the real thing. But he does still pass out, which ends up making him go into this kind of like dream state, and he ends up seeing what we do learn are repressed memories.
Yes, of his mother.
His mother, yes.
At first, I was like, what the fuck does my note mean? Because I just put dream of a woman doing what Van Tassel was doing at first. What the fuck? But what Katrina was doing, she had a blindfold on and was like, Ichabod.
Searching.
And like turning,
Like the witch game. And so, yeah, I was like dreaming of some lady. Is she a witch? ? And so she's like, doing I think at this point she's already drawing in the sand, right, the little signs, and then she shows
burning
him
his flowers,
and she shows him because there's a thunderstorm or something happening. He's like a scared little kid, as one does during a thunderstorm, and she's showing him the little bird in the cage flippy thing. I don't know what those are called, but
Yeah, I don't know. An optical illusion,
yeah.
basically, of sorts, where it's a little card tied in between two pieces of string, and then it has one image on one side and another. But whenever you spin the string quickly, it combines the images
together. Yeah,
which is cool.
mm-hmm.
It was like magic.
Yeah, and he ends up waking up.
Yep. And we also see the whole time that there's this like creepy man watching him.
Oh, that's true.
Or watching over them as well, which I wasn't honestly expecting that to be his father whenever we do get that bit of information. I thought it was just like
some priest, weirdo dude.
Just like watching over and like, because, you know, there were actual witch hunts at this time and stuff. So
it drives a little bit more, makes it a little even more personal when you find out that like that was his mom and dad.
Yeah, and his father just fucking tortures her. Jesus.
And so we have him walking in on Katrina, right? At this point.
Yeah. He goes down to like get a glass of water or something, and then sees that Katrina is in the next room over reading. And we find out that she's reading her mother's books and stuff because she hides it. And he goes, like books that you need to hide. And she says, my father believes tales of romance caused the brain fever she died of 2 years ago, talking about in reference to her mother.
Yeah.
That these tales of romance is what killed her. I'm like, no.
What killed her is a lot more closer to you than what you think.
Yeah, it's actually your tale of romance that killed her.
And so we do have, I think he brings up at this point, you know, he had seen the family tree, and he's like, why didn't anybody tell me that the Van Garretts and the Van Tassels were closely related? And she's like, well, there's not a house in this, you know, town that isn't related through either blood or through marriage.
And I was like, sounds incestuous, but
it does,
okay.
But it's the olden days, it's 1799.
Yeah, at least probably it was acceptable to marry like your first cousin.
But at this point, we do get a really important backstory that we understand is that her dad, Barrett Van Tassel, Baltus Van Tassel, was poor, and he ended up getting a cottage and some land gifted to him by the Van Garretts, which he then used to amass his fortune that he has now today. And so he was able to turn that around.
A humble farmer.
Yeah. And so she's like, you know, should I take you to our cottage? And he's like, yeah. But before they go, she also gives him a book, and he does notice that it's like a spell book essentially. And she's like, it will protect you.
Yeah,
and
she says, keep it close to your heart. It is sure to protect you from harm. And it's a good thing that he keeps it quite literally on his left pocket, like
flap on the inside of his jacket.
Yeah, his little waistcoat.
And she does, at some point as they're walking towards the cottage, she asks about his hands because she does see that they're scarred.
Yeah. And he says he's had them ever since he can remember, but he doesn't know why.
Yeah. And so she ends up taking him to the old cottage and showing him, you know, it's basically in ruins. And she is explaining how she used to love being by the fireplace. And she's doing these little witchy things in the sand. And he immediately is kind of like shook because he's like, whoa, that's just like, you know, what that lady in my dream was doing.
Yeah, having flashbacks of sorts to her.
And then she explains, and he notices the archer on the stone, and she's like, oh, it's been there since before we even got there. Like, it was always there. And that's also really, there's just so many like little Easter eggs throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, that's true. And she
I guess
says,
because
like,
it's a whodunit, you end up going back and you're like, that's
this
where they
all makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And she says, because, I think she points out the archer, saying, like, I've always loved this archer at the back here. I've always thought it was so cool and stuff.
Yeah.
As she's sitting there playing in the hearth.
And, we do see a cardinal, which is also like the little bird that he had on his little flippy thing. And she does say
which
that
he let go of one.
Oh, yeah.
He had one
earlier.
in captivity before he left New York City.
That's right.
He let one go.
The cardinal plays a really important a role of like symbolism. And he does end up saying, well, like, oh, if you like that, let me show you this. And he shows her the little flippy thing.
Yep. And she says, magic.
And he's like, everything, or what is it? It is truth, but truth is not always as it appears or something like that.
Yeah.
Because with it being an optical illusion, he can make it seem like it is magic, but it really is just something that is really quite, you know, benign, logical. Like,
yeah.
You know? And so we do have him coming back into town, and it's nighttime now, and we do see that the councilmen, the older guys minus Van Tassel, are kind of having this secret meeting, and arguing as he's kind of, being shady and looking outside the windows in. And we do have the magistrate leaving, and he seems to be leaving off in a hurry, and he's telling him like, why are you, or sorry, Itchy is asking him, why are you leaving? Where are you running from? And that's whenever the magistrate tells him that the widow told him that she was pregnant and asked him for advice. And that's whenever, what do we hear? Some horse winning.
Horsies.
Yeah.
Winning.
Some horse weaning. What is it?
Whinnying.
Whinnying.
Whinnies.
Horse whinnies.
But whinnying is, I guess, how you would say it.
How you say it?
As a verb.
Okay.
But yep, the horse whinnies cue, and the horseman wastes no time. He comes right towards the magistrate, and the magistrate's trying to run away, but he catches up to him and then shoop, lops his head right off. And of course he made it to kind of the top of a small hill, and then the head just rolls right on down to Ichabod's crotch.
Little crotch right on his pee-pee.
Yep, and his mouth is like just,
okay.
What?
And we do have the horseman circling back around as he usually does, and just stabs the head and takes off with it.
Right next to his crotch. So I can't tell if he passed out because his penis almost got stabbed, or if he passed out maybe a little bit of both.
It was all too much.
Yeah.
And he's also a little squeamish too.
Yeah.
So that just kind of sent him over the edge. And that's whenever he, what is it? Yeah, he ends up, we cut to him being in the bedroom, and they're all like, oh my God. And he's like, oh my God, it was a horseman. And he's terrified. He's shook. And it's so funny because he's like, it was a horseman. It was a headless horseman. No, you didn't
all
see.
Real.
It was all real. And they're like,
no duh.
We tried to tell you.
We've been telling you this the whole time.
We've all told you.
And he was like, no, you don't understand. I saw him. You weren't there. And then all of them are just like, yeah. Okay.
And then
yes.
then Itchy just passes out.
He just passes out yet again.
And we get
like,
flashbacks again.
Yep. And then, it was basically like, okay, his mom's a witch. And then I
she's
was like,
spinning in the air. She's like summoning snow. I don't even know what it is.
I was like, what? She can fly? And then also, I didn't understand why her boobies were so out. It felt very like sensual.
Oh.
All of the memories. And I was like, this feels a little creepy for like a mom and son situation.
I think it's just men made the movie and they wanted her boobs out.
True.
Yeah. And
we started watching a bit of Scary Movie the other day. It was so funny. It was so spot on.
Of like, what do you mean?
Like Scary Movie in general.
Oh, okay.
Like,
yeah.
With just
of like its jokes and how it plays on it. Yeah.
Just everything that it did. And it was really funny. And how they immediately ripped the girl's clothes off to show her boobs and stuff. I liked it. Anyways.
And so we do have all of this kind of imagery going on with this long hall with a red door and everything's white around it.
There's like the red room.
And then like a red runway almost in a way.
Yeah.
And we do have
red carpet.
Him watching the man reprimand her for doing witchcraft. And then
but we don't see what happens yet.
No.
Yeah, we see him dragging her like by the head, basically, and then down to the hallway. But we don't know yet if she's dead, if she's being tortured. But I mean, I guess it's pretty clear that room means blood.
Yeah,
because death happens there.
He ends up waking up, and all of the people are kind of talking in like the downstairs area, and like, basically thinking, well, he's gonna leave town as soon as he wakes up. But he comes out and he says, I need able-bodied men, because he is even more determined now to find out how and who and where and how this is all even happening.
What, when, where,
and why.
Do I intend to find this time? Run around, jump around, this I love.
Dreams. I love Spy Kids, especially the two Island of Dreams, second best one.
And then it really was, and then the music video at the end was so good.
And so we do have basically,
or what was it? She was supposed to.
Her mic wasn't attached the entire time because it said
it was actually her singing.
Yeah, because it's supposed to like. Make her have
gadget.
the voice of Britney Spears. The belt was supposed to have like the moves of Shakira. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that movie.
Classic.
I want to go watch it. And so we do have them. Itchy's trying to connect the dots essentially as he's on the horse with young Masbeth, going to go to the woods, kind of go and find out. I guess what was it like? They were trying to find. The grave. Something.
Yeah. They're basically like, we need to go find where in the hell the horseman is buried. Yeah. Because that's going to at least lead us to something.
Some answers.
Yeah.
But
of course, young Masbeth is the only one who's like
noticing that it gets eerily quiet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And out there, and he's just like, because at one point they're like in the middle of their conversation, and he goes, "Hey, wait, listen," and then Ichabod's like, "I don't hear anything," and he was like, "Yeah, that's the whole fucking point."
There's no crickets. There's no sound of anything.
No birdies.
No birds. No bugs. And so he was like, it just, even like the wind, like everything just went dead still.
Yeah. And they're talking a while through all of that too. They're talking about, or before that, they were talking about an argument upstairs between father and son. Mm-hmm. That was the only thing that young Masbeth knew, and then later that his father was called for by Van Garrett.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty important piece.
Mm-hmm. And so it ties into the story that unfolds later on. They do start to hear a humming.
Yes.
And at this point, we do have them walking up to like a rock cabin situation, cottage thing.
And he's just using poor young Masbeth.
Yeah, just putting him up ahead of himself.
A little human shield.
He does. And they end up walking in, and I love how he walks in and he's just like, hello, whatever you are doing, whatever like thing you're into, we're not here to judge, we're just here to ask some questions. Because whichever whatever it is, it's okay. And she's like, you're from the Hollow, and he ends up seeing like a dead cardinal, and for him already that's like a bad sign. And he ends up telling young Masbeth to wait outside. And
actually she sends him out, and she says, whatever you hear, don't come in, just keep away. Yeah. And
she starts performing a spell, essentially,
she chains
with
herself
potion.
Up too.
Yeah.
This was probably one of the creepiest parts, whenever she was just like,
yeah,
with the chains. I was like, damn, what's wrong with her?
I think essentially she was trying to like prove like, I can't do anything to you, I'm chained up. Like, yeah. But she's making a potion. And I love how this movie has also too, like, both sides of like, there's reason, but then there's magic, and then there's like the witch, the witchy side of it has like its spells and the potions that they make, because even Katrina makes like a potion almost later to heal him.
Yeah, definitely. She puts a crow's foot in it.
But yet at the same way, whenever he pulled his stuff out earlier, he has his own potion stuff, but it's really just like chemistry and science.
Yeah.
But they both have their versions. But anyways, she's doing this thing and making her potion stuff, and she starts to cast a spell. And she ends up killing the bat, uses the blood, just tosses the bat, and she basically is calling the spirit of something. I don't even know.
Yeah, I thought she was channeling the horseman.
I thought so
at first,
too, but it doesn't seem.
But it didn't seem that way whenever she turned into like a snake mouth thing.
I don't know, but even the eyes pop once again, giving like that 3D effect.
Yeah,
and the tongue
pretty
coming
funny.
out. It was funny. It was campy. And she just starts, saying like, you have to follow the Indian trail and find the tree of the dead and climb down to his resting place. And there you will, basically find the answer to ending his tyranny.
This curse. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She says, you seek the headless warrior bathed in blood. I liked that line. Yeah.
Sounds like
and then
lyrics.
Tells him all that. It does. And as she like lunged onto him too, I think her face got more terrifying. There were some moments where it was campy. It was mainly the like bleh part that I was like, okay. But then,
well, even like her delivery, it gives very like Hercules, like the face, like with the old witchy things with the eye.
I can definitely see that. Yeah. And I mean, overall, like, again, and as I said, like, whenever she chained herself up too, she was a very unsettling character. Yeah. And this is a family fun movie.
I remember when I watched this when I was younger, and that part always like gave me the creeps.
Yeah. Andrew said it was this movie and like Signs were like one of the twos that scared him the most. And I was like,
this movie definitely gave me the creeps when I was younger.
Oh no, I definitely watched it and was like, cool.
Yeah. It gave me creepies.
But I think it was because I was also exposed to all this
More
stuff.
scarier stuff, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Nightmare Before Christmas was one of the first movies like I ever
that
watched.
you ever watched, and that's essentially an animated horror film.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I was just very like, and I loved it even at, you know, like the age of like 4. So
yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Shout out to Timothy Burton. Timothy Button. And so we do have him climbing. He ends up leaving, and he starts telling young Masbeth, because young Masbeth is like, what happened? And he's like, I'll tell you. We'll figure it out. But as they're walking out, they do see this person cloaked in white, and they're like, ugh, we're getting followed. So
someone is on horseback.
He tells young Masbeth to wait behind, and he goes to search, and he ends up running into one other than Katrina. I almost called her Christina, but Katrina.
And she says she came out because no one else would. And he says, I'm now twice the man.
Yeah.
It is your white magic. And I was like,
yeah.
And then they were about to kiss.
Yeah, this is where a lot of the movie too I find like campy, because it's almost like you're in this middle of a horror story, but yet
you're getting
the way that they talk
like
is
Jane Austen.
Yeah. The way they talk. And so we do have,
at one point he even says like, you've bewitched me.
Yeah, you a witch because you bewitched me?
Which reminds me of, but like
because I said you may be a little bit of a witch.
Yeah. And she was like, why would you say that? And he says, you bewitched me.
And she's like,
that line there made me go like, ugh. But then like, you have bewitched me body and soul. And like being said from the mouth of Mr. Darcy, I love.
Yeah.
So like I'm such a sucker for it coming out of Mr. Darcy's mouth, but hearing it here, I was like, no.
It's different.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And so that's whenever we do have young Masbeth coming out, and he's like, I think you guys should come check this out.
He cock blocks him.
Yeah, he does. But for good reason, because he fucking found the Tree of the Dead.
And it looks like a big old monster.
It does. Yeah, it looks very scary. And what do we do? Immediately, Itchy starts hacking away with an axe at it.
Yeah, because he touches it and it's covered in blood.
Yeah. And as he starts hacking away at it, more and more blood is popping out. I love how blood works in this movie, because it doesn't splat like the way it would in real life. Like, it's just like someone is very much like
with a
throwing
paintbrush.
Yeah, throwing it on him. And I love how red it is.
In close range, too.
I love the blood in this movie is not the color of blood. It's like really
it's
apple red. Yeah, apple
like your,
candy red.
Like your
but then, like that. And it's not like that gooey, dark, like pustulous, dark red
garnet
that blood is.
Color red, yeah. But yes, as he's hacking away at the tree, we're getting all the tree bleeding, and we're getting the squelching, and then he
hacks away enough, and bam, all the fucking heads. All the heads are there, which is really scary in itself.
It was, whenever they were just like stacked there on top of each other. It was like, ah! And then he says this tree is a gateway between two worlds, and we figure out that this is how the horseman is clearly getting
from A to B.
Yes, from hell into the
Earth.
Real world.
I was like, are we going to do it again?
I couldn't.
And so that's whenever he does go on top, because he sees that the blade is up over on top of the tree area. And he's like, wow, this is actually a grave. And the soil is loose. So someone has dug up this horseman, and they get down there and they realize that the horseman's skull is not there.
Yep.
And so he's like, obviously, because this is obvious, whoever took the skull is the person who's controlling the horseman.
And he's going to keep taking heads until his own is restored to him.
Yeah. And who shows up other than
the Headless Horseman?
The horseman, yeah.
He comes out through the tree, and we get the heads like moving and sinking, and then he's...
I do like how he comes in and out of the tree.
Like birthed, yeah. He kind of like shrinks and then...
gets big, yeah.
Shwoomp,
yeah.
whoomp.
I like that noise. And that's whenever they're like, whoa, but... Obviously, he's not even after them, so like he just kind of like eats and goes into the town.
Yeah, he like not even fazed by them. He's just like, giddy up, bye bye.
Yeah. Does Itchy pass out again? No, that's at the end. My bad.
Yeah, at the end he definitely does.
And so that's whenever we do get to see that we're back at the village.
Midwifery.
Yeah, and we're at the midwife's house.
Yes.
And so we do see that
the horseman did not knock before entering.
No, because the mom and the dad are having a little bit, parental, cute pleasantries, I don't know, flirting, whatever the fuck it is. And so then we do have her trying to put the little kid to bed, but as she's trying to do it, the horseman fucking blows through that door. And we have Daddy versus Horseman, which Daddy doesn't last that long.
He doesn't.
No.
His head goes bye-bye, rolls right down.
Pop right off. And she
then-
does manage to get little baby boy, Thomas, I think his name. Yeah, she called him Thomas, into the floors, underneath the floorboard.
Yeah, into the little basement. But then the head horseman brings her husband's head to her.
Yeah,
and
little
comes
gifts.
in, and we're then kind of we see her cowering in the corner. But this was a really cool shot that we get basically from the little boy's point of view.
I also really like this scene throughout the
Yeah.
whole movie because it's like, I remember watching this as a kid too and thinking like,
How
whoa,
terrifying.
yeah, because she obviously gets her head chopped off and it rolls onto the floor, and the little boy sees his mom's eyes just looking back at
through
him,
the slat.
and he's freaked out and he starts
Because
crawling.
of course they're like open and wide open in
Yeah.
fear too. They're not like kind, loving eyes like looking through. It's terror.
Yeah, and because her head got chopped off, it's like whatever her last expression was, that's like her face is stuck on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's whenever we do have the little boy underneath the floorboards, and we think that the horseman is going to leave, but this horseman is vicious
He
because
comes, right? I was like, not the
he's-
little kid.
Yeah, he starts going
Even
and
though-
chopping through the
Never mind.
floor, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, fuck, he got the little kid too.
Yep, because he walks out with a little sack of heads.
I love how the little kid just
Like
screams
Santa.
too. Yeah. And that's whenever we do have a Brahm coming, and I guess he thinks he's gonna try to save the day.
Yeah.
He ends up shooting the horseman off of his horse.
Yeah, knocks
I
him
love.
off.
And what's the horse's
Boom.
name? The
Daredevil.
Daredevil just like takes off and
Like,
yeets
okay, bye.
out of there. Every
I'm
man
going
for
back.
himself.
I'm going back home. I'll see
Yeah.
you later.
And
Have
so-
fun walking.
Literally. And so that's whenever we do have a one-on-one between Brahm and the horseman. And then Brahm is kind of losing, but he manages to get away because the horseman is essentially like not even trying to kill him.
Yeah, it's
you
not
know?
paying him any mind.
Yeah.
He's just basically like, it's like
Antagonizing
swatting at a
him.
fly.
Yeah.
That's just bothering him. And he's like, get away. And then this was where I was like, okay, this horseman's only after specific people.
Exactly. It's
And,
targeting
I mean, I kind of got that whenever he passed Ichabod up.
them up. Mm-hmm.
But then I was like certain of it at this
Yeah.
point too.
And so even Itchy runs up to him. He's like, stop doing what you're doing because he's not even after
He's not
you.
after you,
And
yeah.
Brahma's like, I'm going to get him. And it just turns into like basically Itchy then trying to help Brahm, and they're both trying to get him. And it's
Eventually he just says, we cannot win this.
Yeah.
And we have to get the fuck out of here, basically.
But we do have them making their way all the way to like the bridge that was there, and
Little
they're like,
covered bridge,
I
so
love
cool.
how they're looking and waiting and trying to see where he's at, and you hear the footsteps of the horseman, and
And it's
he's
like,
on
look
fucking
up.
top of them,
Yep.
and he comes down and he ends up stabbing Itchy and just like throws him like nothing.
Yeah, he's just like, bye.
And
As if he's like throwing a little piece of chicken over his shoulder or something. I
And
don't know
what-
why you throw chicken over your shoulder. But
like salt, like
Yeah.
bad luck.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite deaths is Brahm's
Brahms.
death, because he just gets ripped,
Yeah.
like cut in half, but like you see his body parts just like
twist. Yeah.
It's so
Spiral
good.
away
and you
from
see
one
the
another.
blood.
Yeah.
It's so,
but it's all from kind of far away.
yeah, and in
Like
the
a
darkness
somewhat-
of night.
Yeah, it's just the silhouette, basically.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Which was really cool. I
And
agree.
I guess at this point, Itchy passes out again.
Yeah.
Because he did get
so.
stabbed. He did get stabbed. We'll give it to him. But, he wakes up, and we do have the doctors saying, like, the way he was cut, it's like minimal blood and there were no arteries cut. He won't even need stitches. Like, he's
Yeah.
very lucky.
This wound is really a good
Yeah.
wound to have if you're
Yeah.
going to have one, basically.
And we do have Katrina performing like potion and spell to try to make something to mend him.
Yeah. And he's also like, he kind of wakes up like in gibberish. Like he was like,
Yeah.
his victim is controlled by someone who took his skull, and then like suspicious glances are shared between the
Doctor.
reverend and the doctor. Yeah. And they're like, And I was like, at that point, I was like, okay, these motherfuckers are 1000% in on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we do have him trying to tell them all of this. And of course, they're just like, here, drink this medicine. And it ends up putting him back into a sleep induced kind of, state.
Dream
And
state.
ends up getting more flashbacks of this like all white church, the Red Room, as you said. And he starts to see the dude from the flashbacks walking towards him. And I love how when we get the backside of him, it looks like the fucking horseman.
Yeah.
The Headless Horseman.
There.
Yeah, because of the way his little cape goes up. And so
basically, I mean, it is kind of similar circumstances where something is coming after the person that he loves, as we find out that he later does love Katrina, and it does end up coming for him too.
Like, and it's like all of this that he's going through, he's bringing up the repressed trauma that he had from when he was a child, you know. And
it's a beast he has to face.
Exactly. And he ends up going into this torture chamber area, looking in search of his mother, and he hears her calling out to him. And when he thinks he finds her, he kind of freaks out and he backs up, and this is how he gets the stabs on his hand, because he lands on a torture device. Like a chair of like nails, basically, and spikes. We do unfortunately have the chamber opening up that held his mom, and it's like, what a way to go. That's really sad, because like just blood starts pouring out, and it was a coffin, sarcophagus that has nails on it. Yeah, so it just she was basically like it is definitely medieval torture device. It was actually that used. But like she was just like stabbed. A tomato, onion, just dice like the choppa. I don't know what it's called. The choppa. And she was murdered by her father. By his father. Yeah, because we do have him coming out, and that's whenever he does. I loved the description that he gave. He was like, my mother was a. Oh, sorry, go for it. Oh, you do it. You do it. Okay. He just, by saying that he was murdered by his father and saying that his father was a Bible tyrant, like holding a mask or hiding behind a mask of righteousness. I liked that word a lot. And I was like, wow. I love how he said his mother was a child of nature. Oh, yeah. That was his way of describing her as like a witch. She was a child of nature. Yeah. Yeah. Which, you know, that's what they are. White witch, green witch. There's so many kinds of witches. Yeah. And that's whenever. She definitely seemed to be a green witch. Yeah, for sure. And so Glenn did the good. And so he also definitely he's sharing this with Miss Katrina as he's waking up. And, you know, he's talking about all this, and he apologizes. He's like, you know, oh, I shouldn't be talking about this stuff because, like, you know. Because he's talking about kisses with her, too. Yeah. And he was like, I speak of kisses and you've lost Brahm. And she's like, I've shed my tears for Brahm, but I am not heartbroken. I don't give a fuck. Glitter, she wants his dick. Yeah, and she says, do you think me wicked? And he says, no. But then he says, perhaps there is a bit of witch in you. Yeah. And why do you say that? Because you've bewitched me. And so that's I love it, though. I really do. Yeah. It's cute. I think he is back asleep again or something, because he ends up waking up and the stepmother is there now. And he's like, where's Katrina? And she's like, well, she's been here since like whatever. And now she's time for her to rest. Time to sleep. And then he's like, also like, oh, like, why are you doing these things? You wouldn't think you'd be doing this. He's like, well, and she's like, well, all the servants, or the servant girl, Sarah, has fled. Yeah. She is left in fear. Everybody's leaving in fear. And he is basically just like, oh, okay. And she ends up walking out. And I think that's whenever we do have the young Masbeth coming in, and he starts connecting more dots, and he's like, I need to go see. This is where I finally got all of their names. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's Dr. Lancaster, Reverend Steenwick, Notary Hardenbrook, and Magistrate Phillips. Yeah. He's like, all of these people had a part to play in this. And there's a conspiracy here. He's got to figure it out, because he starts writing it down. And he starts noticing that out of everybody, Baltus Van Tassel is the person who would stand to gain the most. Yes. And he's now the chief like citizen that old Van Garrett is dead. Bless you. Scared it away? I'm sorry. It's okay. Thank you. And so that's whenever he does end up, I think after he has that moment with putting dots together, he walks in, or he finds Katrina in the room. That's right. He finds Katrina in the room after he was investigating. I don't even remember, but she's in there, and she's asking him questions, and she already noticed like his journal of like notes. Well, first he goes to the magistrate. That's right. Not the magistrate, it's the notary. The notary. I'm like, I know I'm skipping something. Yeah, he goes to the notary,
And basically, as they're in there, it's such a cluttered room. But then young Masbeth finds his dad's satchel in there, and he's basically like, why is this here? And then we kind of get the unraveling of the story.
Yeah.
Basically, that Van Garrett made a new will just before he died because he got the widow Winship pregnant.
Yeah,
and
was
he had
gonna leave
married
everything,
her.
and was gonna leave everything to her and the new baby.
Yeah, and then so they were pretty upset. Obviously, his son was, and that's why they were arguing. And then that was why they called up Masbeth to deliver this, new will to the notary
to make it
stuff
legal.
Like that. Yeah.
And so, that's whenever the notary guy is also like, man, we're all gonna like pay for what we've done. Like, we fucked up. We didn't know that this was a murdering, like,
a murdering plot. Yeah.
And so that's whenever we do have them getting back to the house, and then Katrina's in the room.
Yes.
And she's
and
kind of being, she's being cryptic.
Sus. Yeah.
She's being cryptic.
Like, I
definitely.
miss you. Where have you been? It's your room. Was it wicked of me? Like,
yeah.
And I was like,
And she does have reason to be cryptic, because she did notice that his notes were basically pointing all the blame on her father.
Yeah.
And she's being very defensive.
He wrote it in such a way that just seemed like he was making random notes. But then, whenever it was all said and done, it was an actual sentence.
Yeah.
It's saying Baltus is the conspirer, basically.
And so she ends up basically kind of giving him a little sass, little attitude, and she walks out. And that's whenever we do see that there's a spider in the room, and he's squeamish once again, and he tells the young Masbeth to kill it. But
he puts the evidence in plain sight.
Yeah.
Sorry, whenever he puts it away, I was like, boy, that is a rookie mistake, because she looks back just as he does it. And I'm like, boy, he is going to find that. And we also get mentioned that she thinks that she says that her father thinks he should return to New York, which then, of course, makes him seem even more suspicious. And
because he's like,
Ichabod's
he's
mind.
on to him.
Yeah.
And so that's whenever they do have them lifting up the bed, because something's underneath there, and they see that there is, quote unquote, an evil eye.
Or what they think is an evil eye.
Which young Masbeth totally... It's all because young Masbeth says.
Yeah, fucking dummy. God.
And so that's whenever they do think like, shit, someone's like plotting against us. Someone is trying to, conspire against us. And of course, he's already thinking Katrina. And we do have them seeing someone sneak out of the house at this point.
Yeah.
And so they go to follow.
Not being super discreet about it.
Not
either.
at all. Very close.
Like,
yeah.
no.
But he follows, and who do they end up finding, Caitlin?
Lady Van Tassel. Van Tassel. Kind of railed.
Getting tasseled.
Yeah. Yep.
She's getting fucking railed. You're right.
Yeah. And then she like pulls out her hand and a knife, and you think, oh shit, she about to like stab this
him?
motherfucker.
Yeah.
But then she cuts her hand open and then just like wipes the blood on him. And I was wondering if this was
the way that she cursed people.
Controlling him. Yeah.
Or like if she put her blood on someone, they would be the next mark.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But we saw later that that's not necessarily the case.
True. Yeah. And she says that lust delivered him to her.
But it could also be just a type of spell that she was doing on him.
That's true.
Because we did know that like
he did seem to be under. I mean, she was hot.
Yeah.
She was attractive.
We do see though that she does all types of things, like magic and non-magical ways of like blackmailing people. Like
she was very
everything. Like she did what she needed to do to orchestrate everything in which she needed to have it go.
Very
in her way.
Thought out.
Yeah. And nobody would suspect her.
Nope.
Yep. And so we do have, and you know what? She almost got away with it too.
And it wasn't for them damn kids and the meddling, or the damn dog. If
it wasn't for you kids and your meddling dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she almost got away with it. But because also too, like this is her 20 years in the making plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
she's been thinking about this ever since they got kicked out.
Very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we do have him like obviously seeing her and all this, and he's like kind of like, whoa, that's weird. But
We're gonna leave.
Yeah, we do. It turns up being the next day. And that's whenever we do have him finding Miss Katrina
and the evidence is gone.
burning his evidence, exactly, all of his papers and journals and stuff. And so that's whenever she's kind of just basically being like, I cursed the day that you came here, because like you're supposed to love me, but like you're
You're accusing my
accusing my
father.
dad. And if you loved me, you wouldn't do that. And you would see that he's a good man.
And if you truly knew him, you wouldn't have such thoughts about him and stuff like that. And he's like saying, but if there's guilt, I cannot alter it.
Yeah, he's like, my reason points here.
No matter how much I want to. And then basically the line, I think you have no heart. And I had half a mind to give you mine. And I was like, LOL.
I curse the day you came here, Ichabod Crane.
To Sleepy Hollow.
And so we do have them having this little altercation, but the next day or some point in the day, he's talking to the stepmom and he's basically saying like, where's Katrina? And she's like, she wants nothing to do with you. She
will
did
not
not
see
speak to
you.
you. Yeah. And they're having their conversation, but right before he leaves, she says to him, Itchy, you've been so rude. You've seen my cut, but yet you've not asked about it at all.
In fact, you've done everything in your power to avoid asking about it or even looking at it.
And she's like, I know you've seen me. I know you watched me.
Don't tell my husband.
Yeah. She's like, please don't tell him.
And Q.
Baltus walking in. Yeah, of course, as one would. And that's whenever he does notice her cut. And that's whenever she's like, it's okay. I'll get some flowers later. I know where some are to help heal it. And that's whenever we do cut to obviously them going, he's helping her to get some flowers and he's trying to hurry
he had
up.
mentioned everyone too that like they were going to have a meeting because Haddonbrook is dead. The
guy
notary,
killed himself. Yeah.
The notary hanged himself. And then basically that there's going to be kind of like everyone meet and we're going to burn Ichabod at the stake basically because it's causing like, if anything, it's gotten worse since he's come.
Yeah. And so that's whenever we do have him with her and he's trying to hurry her like, hey, we got to get to this meeting. And when he's doing that, we do have the horseman coming up and it seems as though she is meeting her maker. She's going to die. Yeah. But we don't see it because he ends up going off. Everybody's getting into the church and he's like coming on his horse and he's yelling for Katrina and he's like, the horseman has killed your stepmother. Your stepmother is dead. And so they're all freaking out. We hear the horseman coming from behind him and they're all trying to get into the church and they do get into the church in time because the horseman, I guess because he's evil, can't cross the church line.
Yeah, it's sacred ground. Yeah. So he can't come in. And basically everyone's in there and
it's chaos.
Everyone's just panicking. And the Reverend immediately tries to give Baltus up. He's like, is it you he wants? Get out there. You'll kill us all.
Yeah, I love it.
I was like, damn, son.
And this is one of my... Also, I think this is my favorite. I don't know. There's so many scenes in this movie that I really like, but this whole scene of them being in the church and then like, they're trying to shoot the horseman from inside, from the inside on the outside. And then Itchy is just seeing all this happening. He's trying to tell them like he cannot come inside, like it's sacred ground, but yet they're all turning on each other. And at this point, the doctor starts confessing. And I love how he's just like, your 4 friends have conspired against you and played you like a fool. Like, and before he can even say anything, though, have the Reverend then grabs
a
the
big
doctor,
old cross and then just boom,
bamps him on the head.
Right on
and
the
at
head.
the same time, he starts to come after Baltus, but then Baltus shoots him.
And his little powdered wig knocks off, and we realize that that's who was fucking the lady.
Yeah.
Van Tassel.
Yeah.
Because he had that same, like, kind of orangish long hair.
Yep. That guy had. And so that's whenever we do have all of this happening. Of course, Van Tassel is like, whoa, didn't mean to do that, but I did do that. And then he's like trying to tell everybody to stay away from him. And he's saying there's a conspiracy against me and I will get to the bottom of it. And as soon as he gets to the top of where the altar is,
pulpit thing.
Yeah, we get a stake through the heart.
Yep. Which was really cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, this horseman he's very
creative. He is
creative. Yeah.
Resourceful.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
And I guess I forgot to mention throughout the chaos of it, fucking Katrina in the middle of a church was just writing a damn spell on the floor.
Yeah, she was just drawing away.
She gave no fucks.
Yep. She was like, ooh, got to draw now.
Yeah. She said by the power of Jesus and Satan.
And Satan combined.
Literally. And so she gets up there just in time. He gets basically pierced. And then I love how he gets yanked out of the building.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeet.
And then across the ground too.
Drug across the ground all the way across the cemetery.
Until
or
just
graveyard,
his
actually.
head-
My bad.
Yeah.
Because graveyards are next to
attached
churches. Yes, we learned that. And so, yeah, and he gets his head cut off.
Yep. I love how too, he just brings him right to the line to where his sword can actually touch, and just his head comes out and then he chops
Very
it right off.
guillotine almost like.
Yep.
And we do have Katrina coming right up to the top of the pulpit and coming up with the G, and she ends up passing out.
Of course.
And it's such a beautiful scene because she just has this little chalk in her hand.
It was. This was a
and
cool
like
scene.
the scene of like it's showing her body, and then it's showing the doctor, and then it's showing the reverend, and they have the blood, like one from the head, one from the heart, and then like the cross.
Yeah.
And then like it just leads up to the big old evil eye
Evil
spell
eye,
in the middle of the church. It's really cool.
It was really cool. That was a really beautiful scene.
The chalk spell.
Chalk spell.
Dun, 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 chalk zone. Rudy to booty.
Rudy to booty.
And at this point, he thinks Katrina did all of this.
Yep.
Like he believes that she was possessed by some evil spirit
He
and
definitely
was making her
suspects
do
her.
it because of the evil eye and like it going like and leading through all the people and then like not killing her but killing her dad. And so at this point, he's kind of chalked it all to that, and he's getting ready to leave.
Yep.
And he's confronted by Masbeth, who's like, "So you really think
Also,
Katrina
sorry,
did
the
it?"
room she was sleeping in.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Loved it. I
Yeah.
want to sleep in that room. That
And
bed looked
only
really
that room.
cozy.
Mm.
No one else can fit in it with you. It was like a
I see
single
that. Yeah,
wide bed,
but
but
just enough.
it looked nice and cozy. It was like it looked like a sleigh bed almost.
Mhm.
Like it was like in it. I
love
liked
it.
it.
We should see if we can visit that house.
Yes.
The set,
I want
recreate
to.
it. And so that's whenever we do have him being confronted by young Masbeth, and he's basically young Masbeth doesn't think Katrina did it because he's like, she's too sweet, she's too kind, like she would never do anything like this, and she's just like everything points to Katrina, and that's it. And
But clearly he still loved her because he kept
Yeah.
the spell book. He didn't
Yeah.
decide to burn it.
Well, and he's also not like deciding to say anything or turn her in. He's like, you and I will never tell anybody. We know who did
we
it, but
cannot
this
utter that.
this is it. And so he ends up leaving, and
Oh, and I loved the line whenever he says it's just reason, and then Masbeth says you're bewitched by reason. He says no, I am beaten down by it.
mhm,
I was like, damn,
sad. Yeah.
damn.
And ends up leaving just in time for Katrina to wake up and see him leaving.
Oh, and the villainy wears many masks. Sorry, I apparently really liked all of the lines he said here because I wrote them all down. But he says villainy wears many masks, none so dangerous as the mask of virtue. And whenever he was in there talking to Katrina too beforehand, he says something about the spared for a lifetime of horrors in my sleep, waking each day to grief and stuff. I was like, damn, this man's like a little fucking poet.
Yeah. Well, the whole
over
movie,
here.
like we said, Jane Austen,
Yeah,
is very eloquently written.
It was,
Mhm.
yeah, very good.
And as he's in his little buggy and he's leaving, he starts to do a little flippy bird thing. And at this point, you can tell that he's kind of thinking over everything that has been happening, kind of like trying to connect even more dots, or basically he's also like he said he's beaten down, so he's kind of bummed.
Yeah.
But as he's leaving town, he does see that they're carrying the stepmom's body like from the to the morgue. And he notices that something's funny with like her cut hand. And so he's like, wait a minute.
What?
And he, at this point as well, pulls out the book that he had from Katrina, and he looks up the spell that was being used that he thought was the evil eye. But apparently the whole time it was a protection spell for the ones that you love.
Against evil spirits,
So,
which is exactly what he needed.
and what really kept him alive the entire time, even when he got that like stab and stuff from the sword, that's probably what was keeping him alive.
Yeah, definitely.
And so he ends up then going to the morgue, busting in, and he's like checking the body of the stepmom, and he's like, this cut is too fresh. Like,
when this cut was made.
Yeah.
Yeah, the woman was dead because there's no clotting, there's no
healing,
blood flow, there's no healing.
The woman
none
was
of it.
already dead.
Yeah, she was already dead.
So he's like, this is not the stepmother. And so that's whenever we do simultaneously see the stepmom showing up at Katrina to Katrina, and
she's
we're
like,
"Ooh,
"Ooh, you look like you've seen a ghost."
I love when she comes in.
She's
so,
very catty. Yeah,
good at her little performance.
The watch your head.
Yeah, it's such a good line. I wrote that down too. But
Cracks me
she
up.
basically ends up knocking Katrina out, Katrina out
Katrina.
and takes her to the windmill.
Yes.
Hurricane Katrina, more like Hurricane
Hurricane
Tortilla.
Tortilla.
And so we do R.I.P. Vine. And so we do have her performing the spell essentially, and we see the process of how she calls the horseman, and she's saying, now it's time for you to come for Katrina.
Yep.
She wants to get rid of Katrina.
Cuts off a little lock of her hair and then basically says, we have a head for a head and come for Katrina. Yep. And then this is where we get our ever so classic
villain monologue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Telling the whole plan behind everything, explaining everything to us.
Because Katrina wakes up and she ends up being, and obviously she's like, why you? Like, why are you doing this? And she's like, well,
my family name was Archer. Yep.
And we used to live in a small little cottage not too far from here. My father, my sister, and my mother. And my father died. And even though he worked so hard and never faltered to make his payment, we were evicted. Nobody would take us in because my mother was, what's the word? When you were accused of being a witch. She was being a witch, but yeah, she was accused of being a witch, and nobody would take us in. So we had to live in the woods, but she taught us well. But only a year into us living in the woods, and she died. So it was just left to us to fend for ourselves, basically.
And then when she met the Hessian,
he came into the woods, and she decided to sell her soul when she saw him getting murdered, and basically made a deal that if he could avenge her, she would basically bring him back to life.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course she was the little girl who snapped the twig.
Yeah.
Too. I was like, it would be you,
out
bitch.
Of them too. Yeah. And so she basically orchestrated everything by like embedding herself in the household as her mom's nurse, and then killing her mom, and then marrying her dad, and then she ended up killing the baby that was, with the widow and the Van Garrett's, because essentially she's killing all the people in the line that are ahead of her to get this big old fortune.
Exactly. Yeah,
from the Van Garrett.
Because that's supposed to be fortune would eventually go to the Van Tassels.
And Katrina's what's standing in the way of her getting it.
Exactly. And then the midwife knew a secret. Yeah. Which was why she had to die. But of course she said it right in front of her husband. What a goose.
I love how sadistic she is. Yeah. She's just like, anybody who knew had to die.
Yeah.
And so he had to die too.
And she says, this is where she said, Lust delivered the Reverend to me. She blackmailed
the doctor.
The doctor, yeah.
Because he was sleeping with servant Sarah.
Yep. And then she said, and even my poor sister died just a few days ago. Killed her sister, who we find out was the witch that they visited. And she says, for helping you and your master.
Because she, I guess, has eyes on the back of her head as well. Yeah. And so she's like, you're just in time to lose your head.
Yep.
And so that's whenever she...
Because Masbeth snuck up on her, you guys.
Yeah. Masbeth came in to come save the day. And so that's what he does later. And so that's whenever... we have everybody together at the windmill now. We have Itchy, we have Katrina and young Masbeth, and the horseman is coming. And this is when we get Miss Lady saying, watch your head as they're inside. It gave very like Winnie from Hocus Pocus.
Oh, yes.
Like that type of vibe.
Yeah.
Very sassy.
Definitely.
And
it also reminds me of the movie Stardust.
I've never seen that.
Oh,
I don't know what that is.
So good.
What is that?
You should watch it. It's a very, it deals with witches and stuff like that too. But she's very kind of witty as well, and very just like
punny.
She only cares about, which was very much like Winifred as well. And she basically, yes, they're chasing youth, and there's 3 sisters. And so then it's very much like Hocus Pocus, but like kind of elevated and more magical. It like almost meets Treasure Planet. Stardust has a beautiful soundtrack as well. No.
Oh, okay.
A lot of our music in our fall show for my students had music from Stardust, actually. It's a great movie. You should watch it. I think it's on Netflix.
And they end up getting in through the windmill, and they're going to climb up because apparently, why not climb up to having no other exit, but we're going to climb up.
Yeah.
And so they do get up. At this point, the horseman almost kind of kills him because he just like catches onto this one rope and gets pulled all the way up.
Yeah, he lassos
Very
basically one of
Zorro.
the cogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then just gets yanked right up.
But Itchy is able to get the other two up, and he is able to also get the horseman tangled up into the ropes itself.
Yeah.
As he goes up to the top, and as he instructs Katrina and young Masbeth to jump onto the sails of the windmill.
He sets it all ablaze.
All ablaze, literally. And they're able to get all the way to the bottom, which I think is pretty cool, jumping on the sails.
Yeah, that was
and
fun.
Then the whole place just goes boom.
Explodes.
Yeah.
But of course, the fucking horseman isn't dead because he
he's
was already dead.
Already dead,
Yep.
which is already a big problem. So, of course, he comes up, and there's a big old chase scene with them being in the horse and the buggies, and Katrina's at the reins, and Itchy's doing everything in his power to try to, like, be a hero at this point.
Yeah.
But he's not the best fighter in the world.
No.
And a lot of, like, things happen because of just, like, the buggies, like, bouncing the fuck around.
And then,
and like,
they're
tree
going through
branches and
Yeah.
stuff. Because even Itchy, like, gets himself knocked onto the horseman's horse at one point to
Yeah.
Daredevil.
And then
so-
he like gets on, and the horseman's hanging onto the carriage because he also like simultaneously, as
Fell
he gets
off.
knocked down, he
Yeah.
kind of knocks the horseman down.
They're both kind of at this point,
Very
like,
clumsy.
very clumsy scene. Yeah. And they're just
I love
like,
when he jumped onto him,
yeah.
like from the horse itself, and then just
And
like,
then was back on the buggy. Yeah. And
that cracked me up.
there's a lot of horseman just narrowly missing Itchy
Yes.
and barely
Almost gets
killing him. But they all decide to jump off the buggy, kind of like in the beginning of the movie, kind of
Yes.
calls back.
But they're
and-
smart and jump onto the horses.
Yeah.
Of course, the father was inside the carriage. He couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they jump onto the horses, which was pretty cool how they both were like, okay, leap.
And then that's whenever Itchy jumps onto like the little, what's that thing that holds that to the buggy?
No clue.
The middle part, the hitch.
Hitch.
Yeah.
Kind of like
the
a little
hitch,
trailer
like
hitch.
a trailer hitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of getting drunk along, and then bam, we have the buggy just crashing and
And
it
it sends
falling,
the horseman
toppling over.
flying
Yeah, and it
and-
topples over him.
Crushes him.
Mhm.
And then they all conveniently meet up at the Tree of Death.
Yeah,
We're there.
because and obviously the horseman like breaks free, like gets out from under it because he's already dead and he's super strong.
Yeah.
But we do have them.
Including Lady Van Tassel.
Mhm.
She's also.
Oh yeah, just miraculously at the Tree of Death.
Yeah. Well, she was gone. She left immediately. Like,
That's
I feel
true.
like once the horseman went inside, she was like, okay, now I can go put the head back. So I think she was
Put rid
going
of the
that way.
tree,
But
that's
then they
true.
all showed up. And
Because
so.
there's a fight that ensues between the stepmom and
Ichabod. Yep. She
because
shoots him.
She shoots him, yeah. Because because Katrina was just running away at this point, or trying to like get on her horse and get away, and that's whenever we do have him falling down, but he doesn't die because he was protected by the book
Yep.
that Katrina gave him.
It saved him.
Yeah, and so
Yay.
just as we think that Katrina's gonna die because
She's got her like by the head and she's yelling, come and get her, come and get her.
yeah, to the horseman. He ends up knocking the stepmom off of
He
the
just, like, jumps on
horse.
her.
Yeah. And
Dump.
they have this kind of skerfuffle over trying to get the skull, but just as she's almost getting it, young Masbeth comes and knocks her out with the fucking log.
Yep. He's just like,
Mhm.
kind of like in Us.
Yeah.
With the amethyst
Mhm.
stone.
Yeah, just knocks her out. And then that's whenever we do have Itchy grabbing the skull, tossing it to the horseman, and he's just basically like, here, this is yours, you're done, like you have what you want. And he ends up growing his head back,
Which was
the Hessian, which was
cool
cool.
until the blah
Yeah.
part. Then I just giggled.
But it was pretty cool to see like the bones and everything growing back.
Yeah, it was.
And that's whenever we do have him back to his fleshy self.
And he's looking rather dangerous. And then that's when he sees Lady Van Tassel and he picks her up, puts him on the horse with her, and
Yeah, she wakes up out of her like stupor, yeah, of getting knocked out, and she's like, "Oh, this is kind of campy." Her reaction because she's like,
Yeah,
and then he ends up biting her like tongue out or
Yeah.
mouth or whatever,
just biting her face or something.
when he's kissing her, and rides off with her back into the tree.
Back into the tree.
I love how her hand just kind of arm just sticks out, and we
Yeah.
just see her slowly dying like that.
And it almost looks like
Like,
she's inviting them in, saying,
mhm.
come in, you come too,
Yeah,
kind of thing. And then this is where Ichabod faints
passes out.
yet again.
Yeah.
And then we flash to the carriage taking them back, and I like how there's color back in the world now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as gray and
Grayscale.
pallid, and
Mm-hmm.
they all have a little bit of like rosiness to their cheeks, and the trees are such a bright, vibrant, like red and orange
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. It looks like an actual fall. I liked it. But
Yeah.
as they pull up, he says, just in time for a new century.
Yeah, just in
Yeah.
time. And they're in New York City. And basically the film ends on just panning out of them walking into the new century, their new life.
And they're all
Away
living
from Sleepy
together.
Hollow. Yeah.
Yeah.
He basically he marries her, and I
The
guess
Bronx is up, the battery's down, and home is this way. You'll
Yep.
get your bearings soon, young Masbeth.
and that is 1999 Sleepy Hollow.
Yes, it is.
Um
What a fun one.
I do really, yeah, it was very fun. It's like I said, very whimsical, even though at times I'm like, oh yeah, this is a horror movie. I have to remind myself because it very much plays more on the fantastical side of things.
Yeah. It's a
I really did
one
like
that's
it.
good for all family, like a
Mhm.
family.
Or someone who's like doesn't like things that are super scary or super gory
Yeah.
or like demony. Like yeah. I if
How many booths?
I would give it a 4.5.
4.5?
Yeah, because
Why's that?
I grew up really liking it. I always like had a thing for I
Johnny
don't- I-
Depp.
no,
No.
not Johnny Depp. No, not even. I think it was just more so like I remember we had this movie on DVD, and like it was just one of those like, for some reason I think I traded my sister's Spider-Man for this one or something like that at one point, and I
Oh.
just had it in my own, like, these are my personal, I had like 12 of them.
Yeah.
So like it was like these are just movies that
in
would
your
get played.
rotation.
And so
Yeah.
like that one, like I would even put it on, but still maybe not even watch it all the way sometimes because it would be kind of scary for me when I was younger.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. That's sweet.
But like I would torture myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really just like the whole story. And I think I like the whodunit. And
Mhm.
I think as a kid too, I was very much like a little gay boy. Like I love witches. I love magic. I
Yeah.
love like all those kind of fantastical things. So like having the whole storyline of like the witch and all that stuff going and the potions and like it was really cool. I
Yeah,
liked it. I
I
thought
would
it was
agree.
really well told as well. And the I guess even the campiness, I guess I never really thought about it until watching this time. Like I'll enjoy the level of camp that's in
Camp.
it.
Yeah.
'Cause
I mean, it's a good
equally
amount.
balanced. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not too over the top, but it's not to the point where I'm like, okay, like, come on.
It's not
Yeah.
too jokey, but because it's not ever really jokey. It's just that like, because we also know like we're living in, even when it got filmed in 1909, like there's a lot of jokes on like how they used to do things now.
Yeah.
We know now like that's completely idiotic or stupid or whatever.
Yeah.
And like yeah. But
Did you ever watch the television series Sleepy Hollow? Oh, it was really good.
Yeah.
I watched that. I liked it.
I didn't even know
And,
there
well,
was
it was good in
a
my
television
opinion.
series.
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's worth the watch. The Ichabod is rather attractive. Yes. But okay, so 4.5.
What's your rating?
I think I would give it a 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it overall. It's of course one of those movies. It's not actually scary to me.
Speak for yourself. What you did.
But over like the storyline was wonderful. It's a
Mhm.
classic, it's such a cool and interesting story. I love the lore and everything behind the Headless Horseman. It's really neat. And I love the way that there were really no loose ends. Everything was really nicely like tied up with a little bow,
Yeah,
little
that's
nice
true.
little finish and
Like
everything.
even the midwife part, because I'm like thinking like at one
Yeah, I
point
was like, why the fuck did she
even?
get killed?
And she's just like she fucking knew
She
too much.
blabbed.
She
Yep.
fucking knew too much.
Knew too much,
Yeah,
and she said shit right in front of her husband, so
Yeah.
he had to go too.
yeah,
I don't really understand why the kid had to go, but maybe she just didn't want another orphan in the world.
yeah.
So she just offed him too.
Well, it was just the whole family, the whole bloodline. She had to wipe it out.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
guess so. And then the acting was great. I thought.
Everybody?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was not a single
Weak
person in there.
link.
No. It was
Even young
all-
Masbeth.
Yeah, no, he
Like-
did a great job.
He kind of led.
Yeah.
He ate, left no
he-
crumbs.
He did.
I really like Katrina too, Christina Ricci.
Yeah, she
like-
did a great job.
And obviously Johnny Depp, like he's a
His
he's a
character
phenomenal
was
actor.
so funny.
Yeah.
I changed it to 3.75. I liked how like he was so quirky.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
very
funny.
true.
And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and it was such a cool
His
role
character
to
had a
see
lot
him
of
in.
depth to it, especially because we also got like those flashbacks, so we got to
Yeah.
see like his kind of stakes and his personal journey through what's even
Through
happening.
what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really gave and fleshed out his character for you. So yeah, I think, and then it beautifully shot. Tim Burton doing anything.
One of my
is-
favorite scenes.
Okay, maybe I change it to a 4.
One of the favorite like
3.75,
I won't
final
fight you.
answer.
I won't fight you on it because I also really love that scene of when his mom is like flying in the woods.
Yeah,
and it's
that's
just
so
it's
cool.
such a beautiful
Just
like,
with her little
Yeah,
skirt, all
uh-huh.
you can see.
yeah.
I was really worried it was going to transition to her hanging.
Oh no! Oh yeah, that would have been really sick.
Yeah, that would've.
Sinister, grim. But no, I think for a story that could easily be turned into like this really gruesome, like horror. Like they could have easily, if Tim Burton didn't direct this, if someone
This
else
could have
did,
been really
like a nasty horror movie, like really scary, really like gory
Slasher.
slasher, really dark, but it's like
it's
told
so
through
cutesy.
Tim Burton's lens that it's got this like really nice little filter through it
Yeah.
that keeps it I don't want to say Disney, but like whimsical, like
Yeah.
I've been saying the whole time.
Very
Just-
family friendly.
Mhm.
Again,
Mhm.
to an extent. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, this will still scare some children.
I
and
think kids who aren't Caitlin Klein would be
That's true.
scared. Yeah.
that's true. So most
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
yeah, most
but,
kids, because I'm the only one.
but I feel like overall what carries it as well is just how it was written
Yeah,
screenplay.
the writing was phenomenal.
Even through the original of like The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, it only goes so far. Like the whole family bloodline, all this stuff, like this was written and fleshed out by like the screenwriters and all
Yeah.
that stuff, because the original tell just goes up, I believe, to the part where he gets pranked by Brahm and the people with like the fake horseman type of situation. Yeah.
Fun.
But yeah,
Really
that's
good
it.
film overall. So we've got basically a 4.25.
4.25
Yeah.
for Sleepy Hollow.
I love it.
And like always, we are in the lovely Rogue Media Network studios.
That's right. They always take great care of us, and you can listen to us or any of the other amazing podcasts that they have at.
RogueMediaNetwork.com.
That's right. And then if you'd like to listen on a slew of other podcasting platforms, we're also there, the biggest two being,
Spoofy,
and also Apple.
Apple.
But wherever you do listen, don't forget to.
Rate, review, like, and subscribe.
That's right, because that is the only way we can get ahead in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to reach out to us, let us know your
Please
thoughts
do.
on Sleepy Hollow, or what your favorite horror film is, or anything, your favorite Tim Burton film. I'd be curious just to know that as well.
Doesn't have to be horror related. It could be Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Or Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka.
My bad, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you can reach out, and that is on our one social media platform, which is Instagram at.
Boobays Podcast, and that's BOOBAES Podcast, because we're your boobays, not your boobabes.
That's right. And until next time, you guys.
Bye, bays.
Bye, bays.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.